Greetings, this is Corey, and in today's core concept, we will be using PowerShell to work with Windows services. Sometimes, as a systems engineer or systems administrator, you may need to get information on services from a lot of remote machines. This is where the commandlets we'll be looking at would come into play. We've got our get service, stop service, and set service commandlets that we'll be using today. And if you want to use these against remote hosts and remote computers, then there is a parameter in these called computer name where you can give it a single object or an array of objects, and it will be able to go and execute these commands remotely. Today's example demo, though, we're just going to look at a service running locally on this machine. And that service name that I just arbitrarily picked out for this video is Adobe Acrobat Update Service. As you can see right now on the screen, it is currently in a running state, and I'll just refresh it to make sure that that's the case. So it's currently running, and the startup type for this service on the local system is set to automatic. So I'm going to go ahead and run this script. And what I'm going to expect the script to do, and we'll go into detail into what's happening after I run it, but my anticipation after I run the script here is that this service will no longer be running. And when we refresh, it will also have a startup type of disabled. So let's go ahead and run our demo script. Need to save it first. And now you can see the output says Adobe ARM service was running. It is now stopped and disabled. So over here on the right hand side, I'm going to just do a quick refresh. And in the GUI here, the graphical user interface, we can confirm that indeed it is stopped and now set to disabled. So let's run through what this script is doing. So first of all, what we're going to be doing is setting up a couple of different variables. The first variable is going to be the name of the service that we want to work with, and we've reviewed that. This results variable is going to be what it returns when it runs get service against that service name. And that's when we drop down to the logic. So we have a very simple if else if here that's saying if results, so that service dot status is equal to running, then do the following that's in the if block. Now, what is results dot status? Well, in PowerShell, everything is object oriented. So when I do get service, it's returning an object. So what is that object? Well, if we look at results dot get type, then we can see what kind of an object we're dealing with. So we see the name here is service controller. Now with objects, just like get type and dot status, those are basically two things that come in every object. An object, and we can maybe get more into this in a separate video, but an object is basically an instantiation of a class. And all classes are written with certain properties and methods. Method is just a class function. So when we do results.getType, that's a method. And that object has the getType method that we're invoking on it. Dot status is just one of the many properties of this type of an object. If we actually in the shell window here put results and then just a period, we'll actually get a pop-up window that's very helpful because we can scroll through all of these objects here, which these are actually the properties. So we can look at the name, display name, machine name, all of these various things. And then when you get to these cube icons, those are actually the methods, and that can do things against that object. For example, in our script, we're piping it to stop service, but really, I believe there is a method called stop, where that if you just run this, it will do basically effectively do the same thing that the stop service commandlet is doing. It will stop that service. So all objects, the thing to remember is that objects always have a type, and objects are also going to have methods, and they're also going to have properties. And you can use that property information like we're doing here to base certain logic around it. So we're checking to see if the status of the service is running, and if it is, we're going to be executing this part of the if block here. So notice we're going to be taking those results and using the system pipe. So very quickly about piping, very core concept there. In very simplified terms, anything on the left will be piped as from the output on the left will be piped as input into what is on the right of the pipe. So if you actually, let's take a look real quick at stop service. Help stop service. We'll look at the full help on it. And we'll scroll up here. And all commandlets have parameters. So these sometimes are required and sometimes they are optional. And sometimes they also do what's called accept pipe input. Now that basically means that the can it have the object that it's going to look for piped into it using the pipe symbol that we were just describing. And if you look at input object for this particular commandlet, we've got this input object of system.serviceProcess.serviceController, and then it says accept pipeline input true. So that's why we can actually take the object that is returned and put into this results variable and then pipe it into stop service, because it has an input object parameter that will allow us to do that. And if we recall, when we were looking at the type for results, we'll just pull it up here again, get type. Notice it's a service controller. And if we go back up here to the input object, we see that it's looking for service controller. So you can actually use that with the piping here. So that's how we're able to get away with that. So in this example as well, if it ran across an instance of this service not running, excuse me, but also being in a state other than disabled, let's try that out. So now we see that the service is not running, but it's set to automatic. What it's going to do with the else if is it's going to go ahead and catch that, because up here it's going to say if the status is running. Well, it's not, so it's going to skip that, and then it's going to hit the else if and say if the startup type is not equal to disabled, which right now it's set to automatic, then it's going to set it to disabled and then tell you through the right output. So let's go ahead and run this again. Now it says the service is not running and is now disabled. And sure enough, if we come over here and we hit refresh, it now shows as disabled. So this is just, again, a little quick demo about the various information you can get through these service commandlets, and also how you can take that information and then write some simple logic around it in order for it to give you the results that you're actually wanting, and then report those to you. So you can scale this up and do a lot more with it, but this is kind of a very simple demo for some of what's possible with these very, very useful commandlets here. So I hope this has been helpful, and I'll look forward to seeing you all in the next core concept video.